Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a good day so far. As you can see, I'm filming on my porch just because it's so freaking beautiful out here in Colorado, and of course I just have to take advantage of it. But unfortunately there's a lawnmower going on, or a leaf blower. So I hope that my camera isn't picking it up. I'm filming on my webcam right now. The only potential problem with this is that my neighbor always comes out and lets his dog out, and so if that happens, I'll just have to stop talking for a sec and cut back in. But hopefully it'll all be good. So I originally wanted this video to be about some drawbacks of having dominant introverted intuition, but I figured that I would go ahead and make this a two-part series because I figured that I can't really talk about the drawbacks of dominant introverted intuition if I don't sort of give some background on what it is and how it works. So in this video I'm going to talk about NI and what it is, and then how it correlates to the other functions, and then on part 2 I'm going to talk about some of the drawbacks of having NI as a dominant function. And if you're new to MBTI and you only know the surface of each type, so it's like I and E and S and N and T and F and J and P, then it'll be hard for you to keep up with what I'm talking about, because this video is talking about functions. And if you're not familiar with the functions of MBTI, then I would suggest you pause the video right now and do some research on those functions and get familiar with them, or else none of what I'm going to be talking about is going to make any sense. But if you're ornery and you want to listen anyway, then that's fine. I'll try to explain it the best I can. And this is the first time that I've ever actually tried to explain this stuff to anybody, so if you feel the need to correct something that I've said or add on to it or clarify, then please do so in the comments so we can all kind of get on the same page with this whole thing. This is all based on subjective data, so there's not really any research that backs this up, so it's a little bit more difficult to prove the accuracy of what I'm talking about than it is with other subjects. So let's dive right into it. So what is introverted intuition? What is NI? From my understanding, and this is one of the harder functions to explain to somebody else, especially if you don't have it. From my understanding, introverted intuition is an unconscious process of creating a framework in your mind about people, events, situations, and seeing how the facts behind those people's, things, events correlate with each other. So I think the best way to explain this is to give you some ways to compare what NI is to a different function, or its sensory cousin, which is SI. So SI is a function where people take in the hard, concrete facts and details about a person or a situation, and they commit it to memory, so that when they encounter that person or situation again, then they have this rich memory bank of information that they sort of compare it to. Whereas NI goes beyond the surface facts and sort of questions the ideas behind it. So and NI is a very big picture type of thing. And so that's why we're better able to predict future events and implications through using our introverted intuition than people who use SI, because they just sort of think, oh, it's been done like this before, it has to be done like this again. And some of the best examples of people with SI, Dr. Phil is an ESTJ, so he uses SI, but a really good one is, if you've ever watched Gordon Ramsay. I love Gordon Ramsay. He is a very interesting person. He's a beast at cooking. He has like 6 Michelin stars or something. And I just love his shows. And one show that I'm thinking about, of course, it's like the trashiest Gordon Ramsay show ever, but is Hell's Kitchen. So, because I watched it last night, and so this is the first thing that's coming to mind. So, Gordon Ramsay, he has so much knowledge about food that he's just able to really identify whether what's in front of him correlates to what he knows it's supposed to be like. So if you've ever watched Hell's Kitchen, you would know that Gordon Ramsay is sort of the gatekeeper of the food. So he the cooks will make a scallop, okay? The cooks will make a scallop and they'll present it to him, and through his introverted sensing, he has the ability to just examine the scallop and touch it, and just kind of using his 5 senses and taking in that concrete data about the scallop in front of him, and he's comparing it to what a scallop, his ideal version of a scallop, is in his mind, and then he's able to bring it out to the customer or send it back and have them redo it if that scallop does not meet the requirement that he has in his mind. And another way that they do this on Hell's Kitchen is through blind taste tests. So they'll give them a blindfold, and they'll feed them a piece of cheese or a vegetable, and they have to feel the texture in their mouth. They have to taste what is in their mouth is like, and they sort of have to compare it to what they know about certain foods, and they have to guess if it's right or not. And trust me, blind taste tests, when you're just like kind of watching people do it, you think, oh, how could you not tell that that's a piece of celery? How can you not tell that that's cheddar cheese? But if you tried doing that yourself, you would realize how difficult it is if you don't have dominant SI and that rich bank of information to compare what you're actually experiencing. So that's sort of how SI works, and as you may or may not know, introverted sensing is the weakest function in INTJs and INFJs. And so when I taste a piece of food, I'm not very good at referencing, like, if I make a meatloaf and I taste it, then I'm not thinking back to the last time I had meatloaf and how they compare to each other. I'm just sort of thinking, oh, this is food, it's good, I'll just eat it, So I'm not very good at having that rich bank of how something's supposed to be in a concrete way. And to sort of compare how NI correlates to all this, I'm going to give you one more example. So when I'm shopping with my mom, and she's always done this to me, and shopping was always kind of a hassle sometimes, because I never knew what she would and would not approve of. So let's say that I pick out a shirt, and it's a blue shirt. It has little bow on it, or something. And so I'm looking at this shirt and I'm focusing on the ideas behind the shirt. So this shirt, it looks more of a mature shirt. I think it would make me look professional, and it's blue, and blue is the color that ignites trust into people. So if I were to ever wear this shirt, it would be at a job interview, so they know that I would be a trustworthy candidate for this position. And so I'm thinking about all the ideas behind the shirt. And so I, find my mom and I show it to her. Mom, what do you think about this shirt? And it happens all the freaking time. She just looks at the shirt, so she sees the bow and she sees the color and she sees the style, and she's just like, that's a little old lady-ish. Why don't you find something else? So she's very up to date with what is and isn't in style. And so when I show her something that isn't in style, then she doesn't hesitate to tell me. She's an ISFJ, if I didn't say that, but so she functions out of SI. That's her dominant function. So she's comparing what I'm giving her to the concrete facts that she does know about style and how people kind of feel by looking at it, whereas as I'm just kind of going with the ideas behind the actual shirt itself. So that's one difference between introverted intuition and SI, as SI is concrete facts and introverted intuition is more of like the big picture ideas behind everything. And so to sort of tie this all together, I just want to quickly go through the functions of the INFJ and how NI plays a role in how we process information. So drew a picture this morning. Don't laugh, because it took me a while, especially to get these lines straight. But okay, so here are the functions of the INFJ, and like I said, INFJs and INTJs both have dominant introverted intuition, but I'm just going to speak on behalf of us INFJs because I would need a little bit more feedback about INTJs, and so maybe if I get enough INTJ subscribers, I will do a video on the INTJ functions with my boyfriend, because he would be able to give more accurate input. So from what I understand, us INFJs take in information through our SE. So this is concerned with our immediate environment. It's what we see, it's what we smell, it's what we taste, feel, hear. And so let's say I have a paper due, and I have all these guidelines about the paper. So it has what the content's supposed to be. It has maybe I have an example paper where I can see how many pages it is on average, how it's organized, like how many paragraphs I have to do. So I have all these guidelines that I'm taking in through my SE. And then once I've sort of taken that information in, it goes right up here to NI. And so let's say this is my knowledge of technical papers, and this is my knowledge of, sorry, that's really loud. This is my knowledge of technical papers. This is my knowledge of like more analysis based like literature papers, okay? So based on the information I've gathered here, I've determined that this is a more of an analysis type paper. And so as you can see, my knowledge in technical papers is stronger than my knowledge in literature papers or analysis, so I need a little more work to make this mind map a little bit stronger. And so once I sort of figure out the direction I'm going, then I go down here to my TI and I sort of organize and categorize that knowledge based on what's required of me in the guidelines. So this is an analysis paper, but we need to have some financial statements in there, so I'm going to take this financial statement knowledge from my technical knowledge, and I'm going to move it over here and incorporate that into my literature map, because that's what's required of me in this paper. And so this is sort of the organizer, and then this is sort of the map itself. And so once I've sort of gotten my framework out of the way, then I go through my FE and I explain the paper based on who my audience is. So I want to explain this in a way that would click with my audience. So I'm going to try harder to clarify and explain information that they may not be familiar with, and I'm going to be less detailed about information that I know that they already know. So it's a very conscientious. I can't pronounce that word. So it's a courteous function, I guess you could say, is because I'm tweaking it in a way that would make sense to them. And very quickly, one more kind of theory that I have is that when I'm talking to somebody, I think that I'm using these two functions at the same time. So I'm taking in visual cues about that person. So if they're smiling, and if they're joking, and they're being very kind, then I assume that they're happy. If they're frowning and complaining or whatever, then they're sad. And so I'm sort of picking out the framework, and then I'm using my TI to tweak it in a way that gives me a more accurate representation of how they're feeling and what I could do to make them feel better. And so once I've sort of processed that data, then it goes up here to my FE, and I can hopefully explain it in a way that will make sense to them, and that it'll click. And one way that I've heard and I described as is that we think in images and patterns, but we have a way of putting those images in words to summarize it and really embody what the patterns themselves mean. And so I think that's why we make such great natural counselors, is because we can sort of create these internal maps about situations in our mind, and we're able to talk about those things in a way that really connects to the true intent of why the person was telling us that in the first place. And it's kind of cool because, we don't even have to try. It comes so naturally to us. So, alright, this video is really long. Stay tuned for part 2 later in the week. And thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.